Pause. He appeared at the Parliamentarian of the Year Awards, which The Spectator put on in the week, and he said this: "I've got a bit of a shock for you. I think that I and 4 other people, the newcomers into Parliament this year in the general election, were a shock, and I'm very sorry, but at the next general election in 2029 or before, there will be hundreds of newcomers under the Reform UK label." He said, "We are about to witness a political revolution, the likes of which we have not seen since Labour after the First World War. Politics is about to change in the most astonishing way. Newcomers will win the next election." How concerned should Westminster be about the rise of Farage, particularly in the Conservative Party?
Well, I think we should be worried about it because obviously the last election, with people voting for Reform and not voting Conservative, we've ended up with a Labour government with a very large majority that's doing things that Reform voters and Conservative voters don't think is right, like taking away the winter fuel allowance. It's very damaging. Jobs tax that's going to punish small businesses. So Mr Farage is talking big, but the fundamental maths of Westminster remain the same, which is we have a Labour government and we need to unite as opposition parties to try and defend the values that we share.
So when you say unite as opposition parties, do you think a time will come that Reform and the Tories will have to get their heads together, form some kind of alliance to keep Labour out of power next time round?
Well, I don't know about that. By uniting, we saw that this week in the second reading of when Labour were trying to put through this jobs tax, and we had Liberal Democrats, Conservatives, Democrat Unionists, Scottish Nationalists and Reform voters, MPs, all voting the same way. We've got to recognise that the main challenges for this country is a Labour government doesn't seem to have a grip on the economy and is making some very poor choices. And that's where I think we need to put our heads together, whether you're Reform, Liberal Democrat or Conservative.
But from a practical perspective, come the next general election, and I appreciate we've only just had an election, and you were helped to spearhead the Conservatives' campaign, something's got to change here, because you can't have Reform on the right of the Conservatives and the Conservatives as they are right now, not having conversations, not forming some kind of deal. Maybe it's about some of you standing aside in some seats, some of Reform standing aside in others. How else can you defeat Labour? You can't have the right split like this. So there's going to have to be some serious conversations between Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage. And yet Kemi Badenoch doesn't want to entertain the idea of speaking to Reform, even though you know, Mr Fuller, that a lot of Reform voters in the last general election are former Tories.
Well, I think that question is directly at Mr Farage, because he says he wants to destroy the Conservative Party. You don't go into a discussion with someone to say, hey, let's all get together, with an opening line is, I want to destroy you. That isn't the right approach. So Mr Farage, I think he has to... You're right to say that it's early days. So we'll see in a couple of years' time, will Mr Farage's rhetoric change? Will he stop saying that he wants to destroy the Conservative Party? Will he look at the issues that you've just raised, that if the vote is split from people who have Conservative principles, that we get another Labour government with a big majority doing damage to our country, that is for Mr Farage to say, you know what, I was wrong. I didn't want to destroy the Conservative Party. Now let's see how we can make sure that we get rid of a Labour government that's doing damage in the country.